Today, we welcome to Global Citizenship Education Interview Series Dr. Savo Heleta. Savo is a researcher and educator with 15 years experience in higher education, academic research, curriculum development, teaching, research supervision, and internationalization in South Africa. His research focuses on decolonization of knowledge, higher education internationalization, international research, collaboration, climate justice, and social justice advocacy and activism. Apart from his work in higher education, Savo has worked on post-war peacebuilding and youth leadership development projects in Bosnia and Herzegovina, 1998, 2002, and post-war capacity building and leadership development in South Sudan, 2009, 2013. Survivor of the Bosnian War, he is the author of Not My Turn to Die, Memoirs of a Broken Childhood in Bosnia, AMACOM Books, 2008. Savo works as a researcher and internationalization specialist at Durban University of Technology in South Africa, and currently he lives in Dubai. Thank you, Savo, for joining the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series. It's a pleasure to welcome you here.
Thank you very much.
So first of all, how is life in Dubai? Very hot?
It's not bad. We're in the what's considered winter season here, but it's not really winter. I've lived in Europe, in the United States, so I do know the winters with snow and ice. When people tell me it's winter here and it's about 25 degrees Celsius, I say it's nice and comfortable, but this is not the cold. But it is what it is. It's a very interesting experience living in Dubai and the Middle East. This is the most diverse place I've lived in my life. I've lived in many different places. So it's educational. For me, it's very educational to see, all this difference, in this place and to see the complexities that come with that. So I'm learning. We never stop, I guess, learning. So I'm doing that right now.
So you mentioned about diversity. How many nationalities can you encounter in a day? So I guess.
I think you can see people from anywhere in the world, anywhere you go. Literally, people are here from all over the world. And, it shows also the complexities because many people are coming here because of work opportunities that they don't have in their home countries. So it shows you also the problems in many countries that people have to come here looking for jobs and opportunities because it's very difficult staying at home for many parts of the world. So it's literally, you see people and they are from, you hear, if you go to one of the malls in Dubai, you will hear 50 languages during your stay in that mall. And that tells you quite a lot about where people are coming from. So yeah.
Absolutely. Very interesting. So we are discussing diversity, linguistic diversity, cultural diversity. And I want to ask you a straightforward question. It's a challenging one, but all my guests here would go through this first challenging question. There will be other challenging questions, but let's start with this. What is global citizenship and what is global citizenship education in your opinion?
That's a very good question. It's a very, it seems a simple question, but it's also very big. It can be a book, basically. And I'll try to reflect on it based on some of my work in research and my experiences in internationalization and in higher education around the world. Global citizenship over many years now has been a buzzword, very much a buzzword in higher education. What does it mean? Global citizenship as a concept seems to want to portray universality in the world, to portray this belonging to the world, in the world, to the planet. The concept is claiming to be above the borders of countries, divisions, to be above ethnic, racial, or any other differences that we see and have in the world. It claims the concept claims to be, or the people, the proponents of the concept also claim to be, claim that we are all similar and connected in the world, if not the same. You know, we are all humans, we are all the same. It's also a state of mind. So some people speak about cosmopolitanism, in a way saying that, you know, I am in and I am of the world is my home. I don't, you know, I do understand the borders and all these different things and complexities, but, you know, I am in the world, I am of the world. And it also implies that, you know, people who claim to be global citizens, that, you know, that they are different or even better than others who claim to be of their country, of their region. And it's almost this, you know, portrayal of, if you're not a global citizen, then you are backward, then you are stuck in the 19th, 20th century mindset and all that.
So it can be an elitist concept. That's what you're
Yes,
suggesting.
very much. I think it can be a very elitist concept, and I mean, as we engage, I'll speak about some of the research that I've done, you know, over the years on the concept itself. But your second part of the question on what is global citizenship education is also very important, because all these points that I was making about global citizenship are also have entered education and higher education around the world. To basically say, okay, so we want to educate you to you know, as a global citizen, that you need to learn about the world, you need to know about the world, you have to be, you know, you have to volunteer, you have to travel somewhere, you have to speak another language, and all that. And while all these are very important things in the process of education, I'm not, you know, I'm highly critical of the term global citizenship, because it can feel fairly easily achievable for some, and it can feel an impossible dream for others. And it depends on who you are, how do you look, and where you're from. And, you know, I am from Eastern Europe, I am from Bosnia, and for a very long time, it was nearly impossible for me and for people from my country to travel outside of our country easily, to see the world, to be these global citizens. I mean, even if you have the means, your passport doesn't allow you to do that. And so when we say that, oh, we would like to be global citizens like others, when I speak to my colleagues from Somalia, from South Sudan, from Syria, from, you know, from Venezuela, and, you know, we all would like to be global citizens. We would like to move around. When I speak to my academic colleagues from various African countries, when they have papers accepted to present at a conference in Canada, and they cannot get to Canada because Canadian government doesn't give them the visa to come and present at a conference. So we have all of us who say, okay, you have this concept, global citizenship, and we want to be part of it, but we are not allowed, because of politics, geopolitics, and all kinds of other things, we are not allowed to be part of this, as you said earlier, this elite group. And then we start asking all these different questions about the concept itself.
So yes, so I fully understand, and I think we need these critical perspectives, because they bring us into the realities of our super complex societies, and I believe that the way that you approach the concept is needed and very interesting. On the other hand of the coin, there is the idea that global citizenship works as a notion that tries to support particularly young people, but all of us, I would say, in understanding our society as more united, a sense of shared humanity that goes beyond your own citizenship and nationality. And that's perhaps the part that I like and I emphasize in my papers, dialogues with international scholars. For example, the other day I had here the interview series Professor Noguera, Pedro Noguera, who is talking about in one of his recent books of a crisis of connection. And so within this crisis of connection that we all feel, this discussion on global citizenship fits well because it encourages us to think about not only our own immediate surrounding, but also people around us feel more empathetic towards others. So that's one reflection that, in a way, brings in a positive aspect of this discussion around what is global citizenship, because global citizenship, as you mentioned in your introduction, can be understood in a more neoliberal elitist way, but also in a more decolonial, critical, perhaps even transformative and humanistic way. So having said that, just to bring in the full picture, I want to ask you a specific question. In preparing for this video interview, I read several of your publications, all very interesting, I must say. So well done, great job, great line of work. Particularly in 2017, your article with Nico Josti, Global Citizenship versus Globally Competent Graduates, where you offer an interesting and very much needed critical view from the South, and discuss global citizenship versus globally competent graduates. So I must say that when I read the first time this notion of globally competent graduates, in a way, I was tempted to identify this notion more toward a neoliberal perspective, but then I read the article and I changed my mind. So I want to ask you if you could expand on this idea of global citizenship versus globally competent graduates, and what is the tension here?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Thank you for that. It was a very important paper at a time that we were working on, and when we were working on the paper, I wasn't even aware of where my research interests are going to go after that, because then I went further into exploring coloniality of knowledge, and the need to decolonize knowledge and curriculum and all that. So in many ways, that paper links to my later work. But at the time of writing, I just didn't know that would be happening, that this would be going there. And one of the main things that we tried to do in that paper was to talk, first of all, to critically unpack the concept global citizenship, and to show these complexities, and to show why many of these complexities, this elitism and cosmopolitanism that very much can apply easily in many parts of Europe and North America and places like Australia, and these are the places where this concept is very popular in higher education, for example. We try to show how it can be a very difficult concept to promote in the global South. And we try to also show the global complexities, deeply rooted inequalities and injustices that exist in the world, the historical injustices, the issues of colonialism, neocolonialism, coloniality, and all that, and to show that it is very difficult for us to be aware and knowledgeable about all this, to teach about global inequalities and injustices and structures and systems that maintain this in the world. And on the other hand, tell the students, oh, but ignore all that and just be global citizens. And so what we tried to do in this paper was to show that, that the global realities make some people into what I want to call the first-class global citizens, and then many of us into second-class global citizens, and then you have people in some parts of the world that can be easily considered third-class, fourth-class global citizens, with a very distant hope that they will ever be able to reach anywhere else in the world. And so
yes,
we write about these contradictions, and then we say that, you know, instead of promoting this very contradictory term in the global South, we have to speak about critical learning about the world. So at the end of the day, you know, we come to the same point of wanting to learn about the world critically so that we can come up with equitable and just solutions for everybody in the world. And we talk about globally competent graduates. I agree with you. It can be a very neoliberal meaning, but when you unpack it, when you read the paper itself, it's not. It's definitely not. And we talk about globally competent graduates as graduates that are fully aware of historical and contemporary problems, inequalities, injustices in the world, but at the same time are also equipped and knowledgeable to explore with others in the world the possibilities of a better tomorrow. And key in all this, which links to some of my later research, is epistemic plurality. Because unless we have epistemic plurality, unless we learn about each other, from each other, and with each other in the world, and we respect each other's ideas, worldviews, and knowledges, and we critically engage, you know, back and forth as we do in academia. You know, we read and, you know, agree, disagree, agree with evidence, disagree with evidence, and all that. That is, but you know, with epistemic plurality, we could get to a point where we equip the students with the skills and the knowledges and the ways of thinking that can get them closer together.
For our audience, can you briefly define epistemic plurality? That could be a very interesting concept. So how would you define epistemic plurality in this context and based on this discussion we are having?
So basically, in my work in South Africa, I write quite a lot about you know, coloniality, the impact of colonialism and apartheid on knowledge production, on education and higher education. And basically, in South Africa, universities were created by the colonizers to reflect the institutions in the colonial capitals. So basically, that was Netherlands and England at the time. So the institutions were created in the image of the colonial capitals. So very similar to what was in Amsterdam and London at the time, centuries ago. And then the purpose of higher education and education in South Africa was to basically contribute to the expansion of the colonial project. And you can fast forward up until today, where the curriculum in South African higher education is still highly Euro-American centric. So in various disciplines, students are being taught the ideas from Europe and United States, and the rest of the world is completely ignored. So when we talk about decolonization of knowledge, we're talking about dismantling that Euro-American centric epistemic hegemony and embracing the knowledges, perspectives, and worldviews, ideas, texts, libraries from all parts of the world, from the African continent, from Latin America, from Asia, from
Indigenous
North America,
culture,
Europe, from everybody, and seeing everybody as a valued contributor to the, you know, to the global library of knowledge. So, in a very brief summary, that's what I would call epistemic plurality.
Excellent, excellent. And so coming back to global citizenship versus globally competent graduates, I have a quick question and then we move on because there are another couple of questions that are very interesting based on your work. The question is, so the concept of global citizenship and global citizens can be very elitist depending on how people perhaps interpret this concept and people working in educational institutions, or is the term itself?
Yes, I think I fully agree with that. And I think it's also, if we conceptualize a project, for example, a course for students that critically interrogates, the world and all the complexities and that historical and contemporary, and seeks to promote epistemic plurality, that is very progressive in my mind. But if we say that, global citizenship is about us going to another country and superficially learning about what another country for 2 weeks and volunteering somewhere for 4 hours and, thinking that, that way our charity will save these backward people somewhere else in the world. And I've seen these projects, I've seen this in real life. I've seen this way of thinking in my work in South African higher education, when we had partners from the global north coming and wanting their students to have that experience. We want our students to have the experience of poverty so that they can appreciate who they are, where they come from. That, for me, is a huge problem. So I fully agree with you. The way that we conceptualize, the way that we respect others in our conceptualizing of this can make a huge difference in terms of, whether we label something as exploitative and extractive or something that really contributes to everybody learning, progressing, and growing.
Interesting. So this is very interesting because on the one hand, in my papers and colleagues I'm working with, within this discussion on critical global citizenship education, we talk about, we bring in ideas from Paulo Freire, Dussault, and many others to make the point that within this discussion on global citizenship, there must be elements of social justice, eco-pedagogy, for instance, decolonialism, definitely, caring ethics, another important point. So I want to ask you this question. You've been doing a lot of work recently and less recently on social justice and climate justice. So based on your experiences here, we try to get a little bit more practical so that our audience, both practitioners, academics, and graduates can benefit perhaps from your experiences. What actions can individuals and communities take to address the challenges of social justice and climate justice, and how you personally, again, based on your experiences, envision the integration of diverse perspectives and voices from different cultures, coming back to what you were saying, to create a more inclusive and perhaps even equitable curriculum and pedagogy? This is, I believe, a central question.
Yeah, thank you for this. I mean, it's such an important question. And I've been literally these days, I went to COP28 for some engagements and just to observe and to see what was happening in the big global climate, conference that happens every year, which was happening in Dubai this time, like a month ago. And I've been reflecting on that, reflecting and writing a report and thinking about, what do we do in terms of climate action and climate justice and all that. So it's still very fresh in my mind, and I think it's going to help me think about this question as well. Basically, in my work, in my research on climate destruction, climate action, climate justice, historical analysis of the contributions to climate destruction are very important. Because we moment now where we are trying to see what happened in the world, what happened with the climate. We also have to ask the questions of who is responsible, because somebody has to pay for the damage. We talk about climate reparations or loss. I don't remember right now what is the kind of formal term, but we talk about climate reparations, and you know, in all this we also have to read the science, read the reports from the IPCC, the UN big body of scientists that are looking at all this, and they also give us ideas on the way forward and what we need to think about, because basically the historical contribution to climate destruction is largely situated in the global north. And when we talk about climate justice and climate reparations and social justice, we also have to talk about racial justice as well. It was the colonizers who took over the world, damaged many societies and their environments, and today many people around the world in the formerly colonized countries are suffering the consequences, have been suffering for a very long time. So when we work with the students, we have to bring in this complexity. And you know, sometimes people say, oh, but we're in the same boat. We're all in this together. We have to just, you know, sit down and, you know, figure out jointly how do we address this. But we cannot do that because the damage was done by some people and while they were exploiting others. So the complexity is so important, first for the analysis, and second of all for education, because we need to be able to get our students to be comfortable and knowledgeable about exploring these inequalities, injustices, differences, different contributions to all this, because climate justice requires from us, and especially from young generations, because the problem is going to be on them. It's even, I mean, the kids of today, they're not even at the university. We cannot even work with them yet at the university. But small kids who will be facing these consequences, these big questions. And we have to find a way to engage. And your question was about pedagogy and the curriculum. How do we learn about the world? How do we get to, and I know, I mean, I know the debates, discussions about decolonization sometimes make people very uncomfortable because they feel that, you know, if they are from United States and we talk about neocolonialism, then they say, oh, no, this is too personal, you know, I don't feel comfortable. But, you know, the world is a highly complex place and we need to be able to engage with difficult issues and questions in an evidence-based way, because that's the only way we can seek solutions. And I mean, basically, there is no social justice in the world without racial justice and without climate justice. And all of them are so interlinked. And we have to talk about these things. And my biggest worry in the world today is that we're losing the ground and we're losing the space, because there are many countries in the global north where these discussions are becoming outlawed. Where, you know I have colleagues from the United States who tell me that some of my work on decolonization would not be possible to present on their campuses in some of the states in the United States. So how are we going to achieve social justice, racial justice, climate justice when we can't even present academic ideas?
We can even discuss it.
Students. Exactly. What can we learn about the world if we are only going to be allowed to present ideas that are approved by politicians? Because, you know, it's about education is not about comfort zones. I mean, you mentioned Paulo Freire. He would be so shocked reading his work and looking at many parts of the world and how they are restricting higher education. He would be beyond himself if he was to see this and to see this in the 21st century, because during his time, there was a hope that, you know, maybe we will achieve more plurality and equality and equity. But I'm worried. I'm honestly worried. And I'm worried for these kids, for these young people who are being restricted in terms of what they can read. I mean, people, there are countries that are removing books from the libraries because they are asking difficult questions. Where are we going with this?
And perhaps this also brings on the table the question of what is democracy, the notion of democracy that seems to be so fashionable among certain politicians. But what is democracy today as well? That could be also an interesting question to explore. Yeah. Of course, it would take hours. But I want to ask you a final question, challenging one. And the question is based on the discussions we are having today, decolonial elements, social justice element, climate justice element, understanding of how to develop critical discussion on the notion of global citizenship. I want to ask you if you could try to tell the audience how would you define global citizenship education using 3 keywords, and why these 3 keywords?
Okay, so number 1 for me would be history. Number 2 would be context. And number 3 would be epistemic plurality. And to briefly
history, context, and epistemic plurality.
Yes, because I think we need to learn about the world in historical terms. We need to know. I mean, I'm talking about history here, and I studied history in my undergraduate studies. And one of my favorite quotes about studying history or learning history is from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the South African Archbishop who won the Nobel Peace Prize for his anti-apartheid activism. And he wrote after the end of apartheid in South Africa that unfortunately, and I quote, "We learn from history that we don't learn from history," which is so profound and so worrying. That we learn from history that we don't learn from history, because we keep repeating a lot of things and mistakes and the terrible things that have happened before. So I think in education, learning about the past is really important, because a lot of current problems can be traced back to things. You know, that is for me the study of history. The context is, again, the you know, whatever the issue is that we're talking about, you know, we need to understand the intricacies and the complexities, and, you know, what is happening, why is it happening, what are the issues. I mean, you know, linking to history, what are historical, you know, linkages to what is happening today, what is currently happening, you know, who is doing what. So the context is really important. And the third one is, of course, I spoke about it earlier, you know, epistemic plurality. We cannot only rely on, you know, 1 or 2 perspectives from 1 or 2 parts of the world to understand these really complex issues. We have to engage what some scholars call, some decolonial scholars call the library of the world. And I mean, this links also to your previous question about, you know, climate justice. We cannot rely on the knowledges, perspectives, and ideas that have, in many ways, contributed to the destruction of climate to get us out of the problems. We have perspectives, ideas, knowledges from many indigenous communities around the world who have lived in very difficult environments and have survived in very difficult environments without damaging them for centuries. We erase all that and we just bring in the Euro-American centric ideas about capitalism, extractivism, and all that, and we find ourselves in this problem. So epistemic plurality also is so closely linked to climate justice, because we have to embrace different people, perspectives, ideas in a respectful way, in a genuinely inclusive way, to learn about each other, from each other, with each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very interesting conversation with Savo Heleta. Thank you very much for joining the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series.
Thank you very much.